In 2008, Universal Studios Hollywood opened the Simpsons ride, and wow, it has aged poorly. This ride would pave the way for a decade dominated by the rise of lazy, screen-based attractions. But Hollywood Drift is changing everything. We are going to see a new Universal Studios Hollywood and the start of a new era. This is Hollywood Drift and the death of screen rides. Universal Studios is where you can ride the movies. In order to recreate these movies, they use screens. Rather than needing to build an immersive physical set, they can simply use a screen for a fraction of the cost. Universal Studios Hollywood is also restrained geographically and split across 2 lots. They had very little space for a full-fledged dark ride and especially a large coaster, leading to them finding an alternative: screens. While Universal rides were often praised for their ability to blend real sets with screens, the Simpsons ride would not do this. This ride was a motion simulator. In the past, Universal had blended physical and virtual seamlessly, but this ride did not do this. It was entirely screen-based. You would sit in a ride vehicle and a screen would play a virtual Simpsons-themed roller coaster. This ride can feel disorientating, and as it's turning almost 20 years old now, it looks extremely out of date. Screen rides can age pretty poorly, and The Simpsons is a prime example of this. This also felt sort of like a replacement for a better attraction. For a whole land themed to The Simpsons, you would expect more, and a fake coaster didn't really deliver. This ride would be the park's first step towards a putrid path of dependence on screen rides. Over the coming years, Universal Studios would introduce new screen-based attractions, such as Transformers 3D, Minion Mayhem, and the Kong 3D segment of the Studio Tour. These attractions lacked the personality that older traditional rides had. The worst offender was Fast and Furious Supercharged, a portion of the Studio Tour. This ride had characters on a screen, and it felt more like a movie than an attraction at a theme park. This part of the tour felt lackluster and would receive poor reviews from guests, reflecting the nature of the attraction. But more importantly, it reflected Universal's total dependence on screens. They didn't want to put in the time or money to make something more real, something better. This trend would continue. However, in the last few years, we have seen things change. It seems Universal is willing to put effort into real things, and Hollywood Drift is a great example of this. Everything is changing with Hollywood Drift. Why is this new thrilling addition to Universal Studios Hollywood so important? Because what this coaster represents. Hollywood Drift should not exist. There's practically no room for a coaster of this size on a hillside, but Universal found a way. Additionally, this coaster had to be incredibly quiet in order to not upset the local residents. Yet still, Universal found a solution. With all these barriers due to the park's location, you would think that the old Universal would build a ride like the Simpsons ride, to mimic the motion of a coaster without building an actual coaster. That'd certainly be easier, it'd be cheaper to build too, and you can most likely find room for it. And you wouldn't need to deal with making sure the ride wasn't too loud. But that's not what they did. They created a coaster on the side of a hill with sound barriers and a track with elaborate sound reduction technology. They embraced this challenge. This isn't a small or slow coaster either. It goes 72 miles per hour and has over 4,000 feet of track. Seeing a real attraction of this size and magnitude be built when considering the obstacles that stood in the path of getting such a project even off the ground makes you realize that this attraction had a lot of effort put into it. They didn't just take the easy route, which they've now taken so many times on many screen-based rides. They took a route which is quite difficult, but they persevered, and they got this masterpiece of a coaster built. Not a screen ride, not even a dark ride, a full-fledged, modern, intimate launch coaster that spins to mimic cars drifting. It showcases that Universal is willing to put effort into modern non-screen-based attractions. So while Universal did go down a dark path after the success of the Simpsons ride, I believe that Hollywood Drift hints at what's in store for the park's future. I don't believe we will see as many lazy and cheap screen rides as we have seen in the last decade, and I certainly don't believe we're going to see more attractions like Supercharged. The opening of Hollywood Drift will usher in a new era to the park. In this new dawn, rides will have actual effort put into them. Screen rides have died at Hollywood.